Welcome to PHP Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're on episode 279.
Yeah, I mean, every time when you come in, man, it's just that it's deep, it's slow.
You're listening to the tunes of 101.3.
This is Pure Hustle Podcast. Mike speaking here, and today we're going to be talking about, what are we talking about today? I haven't even looked at our what we're doing today.
So I don't know how to title this, but, you know, again, I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes, but it's how to keep a good reputation. And I'm not talking about in life. I'm just talking about on eBay or Amazon.
I mean, both are applicable. Like if you think back to like some of the books we've talked about, you know,
True.
A lot of reselling, like we give the practical aspects of reselling, but a lot of it like filters into your life and how you live your life. And it kind of reminds me of, I'm sure you might remember who said the quote. I can't remember. So quote of the week, it takes a lifetime to build a reputation. And it just takes a moment to destroy it. Right. 100%. Something to that effect. And the same thing even is true in the reselling world. Like you can be working really hard on a reputation and you can lose it if you do some shady things or you mess up. And so
you can at least rebound faster in the reselling world.
Absolutely. You're not ruining it for life. But keeping a good reputation is going to be very important because it's going to be increased sales. It's going to mean more profit. It's going to mean when you have issues with eBay or with a customer, more likely that it's going to get resolved, right? I mean, I just had to a couple days ago, something got sent from Amazon to the place. We don't have a mailbox, but we have like pay for a mailbox somewhere, not a PO box, but like something similar. And we bought something pretty expensive from Amazon. It was like $120. It showed delivered. We went there and the place thinks that maybe they messed up. Maybe it got put in an outbox or something, but they couldn't find it. And they were like, we'll try everything. We'll contact UPS, see if they accidentally picked it up. And after like 3 days, they were like, I'm sorry, like we can't find it. Wow. And so what we did is we just contacted Amazon because they said we can't be for sure. We just think like maybe something happened to it. So we contacted Amazon and we were planning on like calling customer service. But I think because we've had Amazon for years and years and years and years and years. We order so much through Amazon. And I think only twice in the entire time have we had to put in a complaint that it said something delivered what it wasn't.
Correct.
And they just instantly sent a new one. Whereas I'm sure if I had already complained 10 times this year, there'd be a little flag on my account and they'd be like, yeah, sorry about that.
No, that happens all the time. I mean, I'll share stories later on, but for example, and I'm sure they're listening, but there's somebody that has had to cancel their orders on eBay. And there's that drop down button that says buyer asked to cancel. Mm-hmm. And they've used that a lot because, they're cross posting and they don't have the item and eBay banned them from using that button. Ooh. So obviously, a good reputation is worth it. And that's the first part that I wanted to share about here is, why do we do this? But before we get into that, just want to say thank you to everyone who has signed up on Patreon. Again, patreon.com/PureHustlePodcast. Our numbers are growing. We're actually, we're not close to where we were, but we're at least a quarter of the way where we were. I think not even a quarter, but we're getting there, because Buy Me a Coffee shut down and that was our major support for us. And so we really appreciate if you would partner with us and jump on board Patreon. Again, go to the link below, or you can go to patreon.com/PureHustlePodcast and just sign up for one of the tiers and there's no paywall for our content. It's just a way to continue showing support so we can continue providing content. And hopefully we get to a place where we can get back to, 2-3 episodes a week. I mean, I remember one time we were doing like 3. Yeah. And then we lost some sponsorships with the whole Spotify kind of, I don't know, what do you call that?
Adpocalypse. I don't know.
I don't know what it was, but it just, things went south after that. So. Yeah. All right. So thanks again for all of those of you that have already supported us. And some of you are still continuing through PayPal, helping us out there. So thank you. All right. So why a good reputation? Now, you had mentioned some of these, but I want to get into this a little bit more.
The nitty gritty.
The nitty gritty of it, because I got to tell you, reputation means a lot. Like a lot of people discount it. And again, I'm not saying 100%. If you can keep that 100%, I would do everything in your power to maintain that 100%. And we'll talk about that later. But, having high 90s on eBay, on Amazon, it's really hard to have a high 90s. But if you can do that, that's great. But it generates more sales. And here's some of the reasons why. First of all, is generally if you have a good reputation, that tells individuals that you've had consistent sales of items and you've consistently provided great customer service, right? So if you have a high number, it doesn't have to be like in the thousands, even in the hundreds. it looks far better than somebody that only has like, let's say 100 feedback and they're already like at 80%, in their feedback score. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, just think about when you buy something on a website. Sometimes you look at, I mean, if you're buying on eBay, I certainly look at the seller. But like if you're buying something on Amazon, you're looking at how many reviews and what's the average of the stars. So if even sometimes something, you could have 100%, but if you've only got 5 sales, that's not going to look as good as a 95% with 10,000 sales in the last month, right? Because both of those things kind of work together because it's a numbers game. And so on eBay, if you've built that reputation, you've had a lot of sales and you have good feedback, that says something about you. So even if somebody's selling something cheaper than you are, or at the same price as you are, and they don't have as good a feedback, or they don't even have as many sales. And that's not to say you can't get sales with no, if you don't already have a bunch of sales, but the cream rises, right? So the more you sell, the more you have positive feedback, the more you're going to potentially be able to sell, because people are going to be looking at you and say, hey, this is a person who's got good feedback. And they can kind of look through. Sometimes I look through and it's like, oh, fast shipping, item as described. And, A++ seller, right? Those you can kind of ignore. Same thing with Amazon, some of the reviews, the ones to ignore. But when you see like quality feedback, when you see somebody say like this arrived early, it was extra padded, or somebody else saying like I had an issue with my order and this person worked with me, they refunded me, and you see that, it's like I'm buying from this person. Why? Because I have confidence in them, and that's really what that reputation is your ability to have trust with your buyer. And so the better your reputation is, the more sales you're going to have, bottom line. And it's also going to help, I'm sure, in the algorithm. We talk about the algorithm a lot when it comes to things like accepting offers, is that bring in more offers, or listing frequently. Well, I'm sure that stores that have a reputation of selling a lot, delivering on their promises, not having a lot of negative customer experiences, eBay is going to push those stores more, because it's going to make eBay look better than to push somebody who's got bad reputation, because then that looks bad on eBay.
Yeah, agreed. And along with that, you had mentioned, what it says on the feedback. When people are able to see, for example, like if you sell collectibles and they see that you pack them well, right? If there's instances of that, or you sell a lot of clothing, right? And it's, item was exactly as described, right? Especially in the secondary market, right? There are going to be those times where, you sell used items and it doesn't work out. And so if you're able to resolve the problem, right, and people are able to see that, that is going to go far more than anything I think you can do. Like, for example, I talk about the Hot Wheels all the time, but one of the reasons I consistently am selling Hot Wheels, not just because I have good items, but also because I pack them well. And whenever somebody says about how well they're packed, that ends up, I would say, brings people to my store and goes, okay, I'm not going to buy something from someone and they're going to ship it out to me and it's going to end up damaged by the time it arrives. Which leads to my second point, is that it saves you a lot of time. So I remember when I was a, just side reseller and I had maybe a couple hundred feedback, I would get a lot of questions, right? Questions I would get would be, how do you plan on shipping this? Or, make sure that you do this when you ship it. Make sure you put bubble wrap. Make sure, you put painter's tape, whatever. Make sure that, this item is free of hair. Like if, because some people get clothing and there's like pet hair on it. Or, I would get all these questions, is the shoe, how does it fit? Like all these. And I would tell you, the longer I've done this, and I have to believe it's, I can't say, it's directly related, but I do believe it saves you a lot of time, because people don't have to ask those questions of you.
Yeah. They know that your listing is going to be accurate.
Correct.
And that's really what it comes down to. If you're really wanting to buy something and the only person selling it, or the person with the best price, doesn't have a lot of feedback, yeah, you might have to ask some additional questions. Like, what's your return policy? Have you tested this?
It's a trust issue.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's the reputation, right? And that's what we're talking about. And that's why it all is connected here, is that reputation is your trust with the customer. And it really, it does it. I've experienced similar things as far as the number of questions, and it might not be, you got to think about it this way. If you're selling, 20 items a week and you only had a 10% drop or 20% drop in the amount of questions that come in over the course of a year, that could save you hours of going and, well, let me double check that. I didn't even think about that. Or just responding to a message. Yes, it fits true to size, or the measurements are accurate, or yes, I tested this, or it's already in the listing. All of those things even if you don't, we're not saying you're going to have like no more of those questions.
No, they still come through.
But even if it's a 10, 20, 30% drop in the amount of those questions you get, it's going to save you a lot of time in the long run.
Yeah, agreed. So again, good reputation helps out in profits, saves you time. And also it gives you negotiation room when things go wrong with the platform, right? So on eBay, it's a lot easier, right? Say there's an issue with a buyer to contact eBay. And I get this pretty much, I would say, like, I don't know, throw an arbitrary number, 70% of the time, it's like, oh, you've been selling with eBay for over 10 years. Thanks so much. And we see that you have 100% feedback. Thank you for providing great customer service. Do they tell you that?
Yeah.
Right. It's probably in the script.
I mean, I get similar things, but it's the same thing. Like when I call about an issue, they're going to say things like, oh, we can see, you've got this feedback. You're a top rated seller. We talk about being a top rated seller a lot. And those things make a big difference. It's the same thing in some ways of, if you're a customer for something. If you're a customer, my wife is really good at this. I've gotten better at it since I've done like the never split the difference negotiating thing. If you're a customer, let's say with AT&T, and you're calling because you want to get more data on your plan or you want your bill to be lowered, when you can call in and they're like, yeah, you've been a customer with us for 15 years.
You paid all your bills on time.
Bills are paid. You're an outstanding customer. Because companies spend a lot of money acquiring customers. Like when I worked at DirecTV, it took, I think it was like at the year 2.5 before we started turning a profit on the customer. Because once you consider the cost of the equipment we put in their house and the installation, because those technicians weren't cheap to go out and sometimes spend 5-6 hours at a house putting stuff in. So it could be a couple of years before you start turning a profit. So when companies are constantly losing customers, they're switching from company to company, it's devastating to them. And so the same thing is true with eBay. When you have shown yourself as, I'm a loyal seller on your platform and I take care of my issues, I've got all of this stuff. Yeah, they're going to be more willing to say, you know what? Okay, so we're going to side with you on this situation, or we're going to help you get this negative feedback removed, or we'll go ahead and let you do a partial refund instead of a full refund. There's a lot of different things that get opened up. Some of those seller protections we talk about because of your reputation. And if you don't have that reputation, if you're calling, maybe if you're a new seller and you're just got an issue, they'll work with you. But if you've developed a reputation, and again, I worked at a call center, so I know how it goes. And I'm sure every company has a different setup, but our customer accounts, when customers would call, there were logs, and you could see, and the logs would get colored if it was like this was a very negative interaction. And so you could see like, oh man, this customer has 8 negative interactions and they've only been a customer for a year.
Well, do you think that happens on eBay? Like, let's say you have,
it does.
You call, like, because it's funny because I have some people that say, Orlando, it seems like you call eBay a lot. And honestly, I call maybe eBay once a week, maybe if that.
And that sounds like a lot, but you're a big seller.
Yeah, but every time it closes, it's in the positive. It's in my favor, right? Because it's. So do you think there's something like, let's say I called 8 times and 7 out of the 8 it was against me? Do you think? I wonder if something like that would pop up, right? Because you would. Sure. I would think that the customer service person on the other end would look at that and go, "Wow, this person's had 7 out of the 8 cases closed against them." There's something not right about, what they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, just think about it even as a teacher. Like, this is just human nature. Even if because part of it is going to be, because that's why we say like call and call again and message again until you get the right person who will work with you. Because there is a human element to it. They have a certain amount of flexibility and freedom with what they can and can't do. Sometimes it's got to go to a manager or something else. But a lot of times they have a little bit of freedom of, okay, we'll side with you. We'll do this. And part of that's going to depend, are you nice to them? Part of that's your reputation too. When you call in, are you belligerent or are you being kind to them? Because those things are going to make a difference. You're building almost a short-term reputation. Like, hey, is this somebody I want to work with? But think about like even, as a teacher, you get 2 students who come to you, there was an issue and one of them says this happened. The other one says that happened.
Are you saying you play favorites?
Absolutely not. But you look at the history of things and you're like, this is a student who hasn't lied to me, who's been consistent, who turns work in on time, who owned up last time they made a mistake. And here's a student who has destroyed their reputation with me. They've lied. They've gotten in trouble twice for cheating. Which one am I going to side with? Well, I'm going to look at the evidence. And if things are kind of even here, I'm going to side with, most likely, because there's a human element there, you're going to side with the person who has the better reputation. Yeah. And it's the same thing with this. When you're calling in, if you've got that reputation built, you have that negotiation, you've got that flexibility that they're going to want to work with you, as opposed to somebody who is constantly an issue, constantly a problem. So keeping that reputation, that's what we're going to be talking about next, is how do you develop that reputation in the first place? And then what do you do if like problems come up, how can we keep that reputation once you've built it?
But before we go there, we need to talk about another company that has a great reputation with us. It's AmericanBubbleBoy.com.
Yeah.
I just ordered my other 4-foot roll. And
I don't do the 4-foot rolls. I do the smaller rolls. But it's funny because when I I'm over at your place and I see you've got the giant rolls, I'm like, holy cow, those things are big. But yeah, I mean, it's a great company. They'll get you your inventory quickly at a great price. And, we've personally not had any problems with them. We've loved their product. And so we've had a lot of customers, a lot of our listeners who become customers, and we've gotten a lot of positive feedback. So at least try it, right? I mean, everybody's got to make up their own choice people get very picky about, certain things that they want. And so try it. It's at such a good price that you try it once, see if you like American Bubble Boy. And I'll be surprised if you're not a continual buyer of American Bubble Boy.
Yeah. So again, go to the link below, AmericanBubbleBoy.com. Use our promo code Pure Hustle Podcast. First time buyers will get a discount. So again, promo code Pure Hustle Podcast. All right. So what do you do? There's the before and the after, right? To keep that great reputation. The before, I think this is one of the ones that a lot of people don't talk about, is you need to source items that aren't problematic to you. Right. And generally that source what Now, I'm not saying don't, expand and learn other niches, or sometimes you pick up other items that are profitable that aren't necessarily something you pick up. But I would say if it's something that is you don't know, right? So I'll give you an example. I cannot pick up VCRs anymore. And I'm not saying
same.
It's because like I do know VCRs, but I find them to be problematic, right? From the beginning of,
you can test it and everything seems fine, but unless you've watched a whole movie on it and tried every feature, someone gets it and it's like, yeah, the rewind works the first 2 times you use it, but then on the 3rd time, something, you know what I mean? Yeah, those things come up.
And then there's a whole, you go home, you test it, then you ship it, right? You gotta do all the packing, and then you gotta send it out, and then something might not work. And so for me, it's just too problematic. Right. I run the risk of negative feedback, because all it takes, right, is, that 100% can drop to I think it's like 99.8 from one negative feedback. Right. And you may not be able to resolve it. And so I stay away from electronics. I know a lot of people do that and they're very profitable, but I find for myself, I have a way better time with clothing. Right. And it's kind of interesting, because I remember like clothing was I don't know. I just got this vibe that clothing wasn't the cool thing when I got into reselling. Like that was what every reseller got into, because clothing was really, really easy, right? It's what every thrift store has, and not every garage sale, but you can always find clothing. But I find with clothing, it's really easy for me, because if like there's a stain that I miss, or there's a hole that I miss, or there's something not right with it, generally I didn't pay that much for it. So I can just refund it. And it doesn't cost me much, right? Unless it's a vintage piece that costs a lot, then ask for a return, and we'll talk about that. But I'd rather deal with that than deal with an electronic that doesn't work. And then I also got to worry about, am I going to be getting scammed? Now I got to worry about the shipping, because I do free returns. Like, how much is it going to cost me? It just becomes problematic for me, right? And it's also, I'll give one more category. Video games, right? It all depends on which, console, but like, for example, I have not had great experience selling video game consoles. Like generally there's something that goes wrong in shipping, or it doesn't work. If it's a Nintendo, you got to blow into the cartridge or something some more. But if I sell controllers and I sell the games and accessories, I'm fine, right? It's not problematic, but I don't run myself into that danger.
No, it's good. And to be clear, we're not saying don't sell electronics. What we're saying is sell what you know. So maybe for you, your niche, you understand vintage electronics. Like that is your niche. You know what people are looking for. You know what conditions people find acceptable and not acceptable. And so for you, vintage electronics, or just electronics in general, might be far less problematic than clothing, right? So find what works for you. That's why we, Orlando prefaced it with that are problematic for you, because everybody's going to be different. So sometimes, there's that fear of missing out. Like maybe I need to sell this category. Maybe I need to sell this category. And we are big proponents of, you should be expanding. You should be learning new niches. But as you're learning a niche, start slowly, figure things out, do your research, and you might come to find that this is too problematic, or this is actually one of the easier things that I sell. So definitely find what works for you.
Well, real quick, I'll give an example. Also, like Funko Pops, I won't sell Funko Pops.
Yeah, it's boxes, right?
It's the box. Like I can't tell you how many Funko Pops. And maybe there's something wrong with me, but how many Funko Pops I would sell, and I would ship, and everything's fine, and then I get, hey, there's a crease here, or there's a bend here, and I never saw it, right? And so now, obviously I accept the return and so on. But again, there's somebody that's unhappy. Maybe I shipped it out for a birthday and it ruined somebody's birthday, or there's a person that collects them, and whatever it is. The Funko Pops, the new unbox, were just too problematic for me. So I just don't deal with it.
Yep.
So
it's good.
All right. Now, I think making a good listing prevents a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about there used to be the time where people like went overboards on the listing. We think simple is better. Having just the necessary information, take good pictures, have a decent description describing the condition of it. And if you know if there's anything wrong with it, make sure to list those things. But don't go overboard, right? We're not saying you need to write, an essay for each item that you list, or have all kinds of flashy things happening on your site. But just having a description where you say, this works, this doesn't. When I do sell electronics, a lot of times I just sell them for parts or as is. And I say like turns on, untested, selling for parts, just because, I don't always have all the, you get one piece. It's like, oh, this is a cool piece, but it takes 3 other things to like run properly and test. And I don't have those things. And so I list that in that way. And I have a reduced price, and I have far fewer returns because of that, as opposed to, people who try to be vague and say tested working, and they don't really explain that, hey, I haven't tested all the features on it, or whatever the situation is. So being clear, or having sizes in your clothing. That's a big one, because, clothing returns for do not fit can be annoying, or shoes, same thing. And so just being very clear with the sizing, like here's the size of the waist, here's the size of the inseam, here's the size of the sleeve, the neck. Having those things in there is going to reduce the amount of issues that you have in the long run.
Agreed. And again, like you said, don't put too much. And actually, eBay in the new like process flow of listings, I don't know has that popped up for you yet? The new listing template that looks like how you list it on your phone.
Yeah, I think so.
You got it now? Okay. So one of the things on there, which is interesting, I used to have a template that like I would put the size, the material, the condition, the brand, all that stuff. And I still use it because I put measurements and so on. But anytime I copy paste that onto that eBay listing, eBay tells me like something like be aware, less is more. Like you don't want to write too much. Most listings don't want that much. And so one way, and I know Mike and I disagree on this because we've talked about it a few times on the podcast. Whenever something has a lot of wear or marks, like especially like when it comes to shoes,
I hate the way you word it.
I put used but not abused, cosmetic wear throughout. And I got to tell you, I've not had a single issue with condition. Not one. Oh,
you've had to have one.
No, I have not. Honestly.
Oh, come on. You've never had somebody say this is in worse condition.
I've had somebody tell me about a shirt that it was a lot more faded than they saw in the picture. That's it. Or one was like, this hood isn't dark brown, it's light brown. Okay, but as far as condition, honestly, I have I had like the sole that fell apart or something? Yeah, I've had that. But as far as somebody contesting like, oh, you said that there was cosmetic wear throughout. Well, there was excessive cosmetic wear throughout. Like, it's really hard to get around that.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes like when I buy books used on Amazon, I buy a lot of used books because sometimes the price difference is just incredible. But yeah, and I know it makes sense for them because they have categories and they already have their templates built out. But it's very specific of like their version of used good is how many highlights and markings and this, right? Like, so it's very thorough as far as what could be potentially wrong with it. And yeah, so I think being thorough can be really good. Or like you said, using something like, cosmetic wear. I typically use that, like cosmetic wear, scuffing throughout, see pictures for details. Mm-hmm. I try not to use the use but not abused because to me that's just too vague of a statement because everybody's going to have, because
how about gently used? Because I use that one too.
I don't like that. I don't like when people ask, like when somebody says like, hey, I'm looking for a such and such gently used. And it's like, well, I mean, everybody's version of what gently used is a little different.
I will say I'm probably it's not the best.
Hey, but if it's working for you, but that kind of leads us into the next point, which is
before I go there, under promise. Yeah, it is under promise, right? Yeah. So always remember, this will help you keep your good feedback. Under promise and over deliver.
I think accurately promise and accurately deliver.
No, because how many times have you shipped out something? They're like, whoa, this is way better than I saw in the listing. Right?
Yeah, but you might be losing sales if you're under promise everything. If you're like basically making yourself look like
this is trash. Like, no.
I mean, I did see one. I think I read it on the podcast probably a year or two ago. But somebody basically explained how they in order to prevent issues with whatever they said, this item is like one of the funniest ones I saw. It's like something like this item looks like it's been hit with a baseball bat and run over by a truck. And given that it'll be shipped through USPS, it probably will be again before it gets to you.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's hilarious.
That is pretty funny.
That's a good condition.
But it's always, don't try to make it seem like, for example, it's really easy on your phone when you're taking pictures to adjust that brightness, right? And make the colors look more vibrant than they actually are. Or, you can use a different app and you adjust the colors. Like, be careful because in my early days, I would do some of that, and luckily I didn't have any issues. But I was like, wow. I would look at the item when I'm shipping it. I'm like, whoa, this doesn't look as good as the pictures that I took.
Either way, Orlando and I agree. Don't overpromise. Don't make it seem like it's in a better condition than it is.
Agreed.
But then that again kind of leads up to the next point. I'm trying to do the segue thing here.
Okay.
Is even if you do have issues where you're going to have, some kind of a problem, offering a return policy of some kind. Now, Orlando and I do it differently, and I'm sure, let us know in the comment below. How do you guys handle return policies? What has been your, best practices for that? But for me, and for both of us, we offer returns. I offer returns, but they need to pay. Orlando offers free returns. But having a return policy, one, it gives that trust. I remember when we were going to buy some equipment for the podcast, I was like, hey, I found a couple of things on eBay. Here's a couple of the things that I need in order to make, the audio work. And you're like, well, do they have a return policy? And I'm like, oh, no, this one doesn't. And we were willing to pay up like $15 for a different buyer or a different seller that had a return policy. Cause it's like, yeah, what if something goes wrong with it? If we're stuck paying the return, it would have been better off if we'd have just paid a little bit more, because we were paying several $100s for something. So having a return policy, one, it helps build your reputation in the first place. Right?
It builds confidence.
And then if there is that issue with eBay or whatever, you've got something to fall back on. Hey, I offer returns, and then it gives you that negotiation, just like we talked about earlier. So offering returns is very, very useful. And there's probably a lot of benefit to doing free returns. It probably provides even more customer confidence. I find that I get my seller protection and my top rated by just offering returns. So I do that. And the nice thing is there's been a lot of instances where somebody's complained about something and I'm like, sure, ship it back. And then they don't want to pay the shipping, and it's not a problem with the listing. If it's ever a problem with the listing, I actually pay for returns. I don't want to say often, but when there are returns, there's times when I pay for the returns because, okay, that may have been my bad, or I understand the situation. But if it's, sorry, this didn't fit me, or whatever the situation is, they're paying to send it back to me, right? I'm not going to be your rental service. And so that deters a lot of returns. And it also probably deters some of those buyers who potentially could be those problematic buyers in the first place.
And also understand, with returns, it eases tensions, right? You send something out and it's messed up, right? And it's, you missed.
Maybe in shipping even, right?
Yeah, whatever it is. But, you get a buyer and they can't wait. And they open that package and it's not what they expected. So automatically they shoot a message towards you like, I'm very unhappy. I can't believe this, da 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 da. And the easiest thing to do is just say, I'm so sorry, things didn't work out. You're more than welcome to return it. Below is the link. And that's it. That's it, right? And so that eases tensions. I've never gotten a negative feedback because usually people they calm down once they're escalated. And then when there's an issue, eBay, I will tell you, will side with you far more if you offer returns, if you're a top rated seller, if you have 100% feedback. And on top of that, I would say, even if you do free returns, I gave that example a few podcasts ago where I had individuals that were renting my stuff, right? They would buy it. I get it back. Let's say it was a new jacket. The tags would be off. Or I remember one time I had a pair of shoes. They thought the shoes were, not good and they didn't like it. And they returned it to me and there was no laces. And I was like, what? So I gave them like a 50% refund, I kept the other half. and they got so angry and they left me a negative feedback. And so I called eBay and they said, well, you offer free returns. You did everything you could to make things right, and they didn't return the product. So yeah, that's fine. We'll remove it. No big deal. You can keep that 50%. I even had times where, let's say the buyer returned something to me in the exact condition, except now you could tell it was worn. Like, for example, one time somebody like went crazy with like their perfume on some kind of jacket I sold. And, visibly it was fine, right? You can't smell through the pictures. So I called eBay. I'm listen, I can't sell this thing anymore. I can't do a refund. And they're like, hey, listen, you've had great feedback. You've, offered free returns, and you haven't always been calling every single moment to try to work things out. And it's obvious that you have a good record. And so, we're going to refund the buyer, and you're going to be able to keep your item and keep your money, and we're all good. Right. So again, return policy. And I know a lot of people, it's funny because somebody had said, there was a post on our last Instagram. I talked about why returns help, because I do believe returns keep scammers away, because there's a lot of scammers that they'll buy something and then they'll contact you that something's wrong with it. And the moment you offer a refund, you never hear from them again, right? They were just trying to get that money off, or trying to get, that partial refund.
Partial refund and keep the item.
Right. And so, I had people in the comments just saying, easy, just don't offer returns. But the other side of not offering returns is, the data shows that there are less sales, that you do get more sales with offering returns. So not only is it going to help your reputation, but it's also going to end up being more profitable.
Bottom line, that's what matters.
Bottom line. All right. Hey, before we start moving forward to our, I would say famous segment.
Yeah. Before we get to our hustle of the week.
So famous as is on other shows.
Yeah. Send them to us.
Should we play that?
At some point. Maybe our next update episode.
Our next update. Okay, we'll do our next update episode. But anyways, our hustle of the week. But if you have not been following us on social media, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We are Pure Hustle Podcast. Also follow us on Twitter. We are Pure Hustle Cast. You can always give us a call, 619-738-1170. That's 619-738-1170. Or shoot us an email at purehustlepodcast@gmail.com. That's purehustlepodcast@gmail.com. And if you're listening to the podcast, if you never caught our YouTube, we are dropping videos when we can. Life is getting kind of busy. But we always have our Monday minisodes that do not end up on the podcast. And so
you are missing out. If you're not subscribed to YouTube, you're missing out on content.
So just come on over, hit that subscribe, hit that like button right now for this episode that you're listening to and hopefully watching. And also hit that bell notification so you're notified when something new pops up. And also grateful for all the reviews that people have have submitted into iTunes. The reviews always help us in the algorithm. We always know, because there was a time when we would type in Pure and our name would never come up. Now, when we type in Pure, our name comes up as a third in the search. So
moving on up. Let's get to number 1.
We are moving on up, and we're grateful for all the reviews that we get. We're still on the 500 club, hoping to get to 600. I just want to read the last 2. Appreciate. This is from Hysterical 88. And they said, loved your last show. Would appreciate if you can look into how Goodwill is charitable. Greedwill.
We actually have a whole video, I think, on specifically the Goodwill situation. So yeah, check back on our old podcast. So check back on our old podcast. I don't remember which number it was.
Yeah, I don't know. Did we do that?
Yeah, we had a whole segment where we talked for a long time about
that's right. Situation. I think it was like an update episode, wasn't it? Okay. And maybe I don't know. Maybe we'll do it again. We haven't done our specialized episodes like that in a while. When you say they provide jobs, do they just pay their employees? This is for a commentary. How is that charitable? I know. Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, thank you for the review. Those are great points. I think you make great points. Orlando's trying to be, politically correct right now, and we want to.
I wanted to highlight people leaving. So they said they love the podcast. I didn't want to go into,
Yeah, and we want to do our due diligence, because we've said a lot of things about Goodwill, but before we have any kind of, because there are definitely some huge flaws and problems we have with them, but at the same time, there is good they do, so we don't want to just bash them. So there's We thank you though for taking the time to comment on our podcast, and we'll definitely look into that. That's a good thing too. If you've got episode suggestions, a good way to make sure we read your episode suggestion is leave us a review.
There you go. That's a great
on
idea.
iTunes, and we will talk about it. So consider talking about it.
Got one more here from Dewey Stew, brand new. They're not even resellers yet. So it said, my wife and I are considering getting to reselling as a fun hobby and to earn some extra money. It's a great fun hobby. Make money.
You'll make money.
We discussed it for the first time yesterday. This morning, I discovered your podcast. While listening, I learned that you guys are from San Diego. I'm from San Diego too. Nice. I grew up in the South Bay. We now live in Maryland, close to DC and Baltimore. So I'm going to take this as a sign.
It is a sign. I mean, reselling, that the reason we do this podcast, I mean, my mission over the last several years has kind of evolved. But a big part of what I'm passionate about is helping show other families how to get financial independence. Like having a stable family where you're not reliant, and maybe you're just an individual, but being a self-sufficient person. And like you mentioned, a fun hobby, you are going to make money. And as you continue to go through it, you're going to continue growing, and you'll get to a place where either one, you're significantly supplementing your income, or two, you can move more towards like Orlando and actually do it full time. So it gives you freedom. It gives you options. And then when there's inflation, or when, your car breaks or your rent gets increased or whatever happens, you're not stressed out about money because you have some independence in your life. And so reselling has definitely given us that. And so we hope that you find that to be the same.
Well, and it's been true. I mean, how companies have mission statements. That's our statement. I mean, even you see it in our description of our podcast, a place where we discuss how to level up your standard of living through reselling.
Yep. And
that's our goal. And Mike and I have definitely leveled up our standard of living because of reselling. So thank you to all of you, by the way, again, for all the support at the Patreon or PayPal or just tuning in. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Are you ready?
Come on, hustlers. It's the freaking hustle of the week. Yeah. All right. Our first one comes from Mike. So, hey, good name there. IG handle at Coastal Bend Picker. So went to his Honey Hole thrift store and came across a binder for 80 cents. Listed it on eBay, and within about 2 weeks it sold for $133.
And do you want to know what kind?
Is it like a Pokemon binder or like a school binder?
Let's see if you go finger. Do you know some of the binders to keep an eye for?
I don't.
Some of the bolos.
I don't know, but talking to the mic while you're telling me that.
Some of the bolos.
Yeah. What are some binder bolos?
So I'll let you read.
So it is a Lisa Frank vintage Tiger 3-ring zip up binder from the 90s. I mean, 90s, man. It's I think we're moving towards like the 2000s are back, right? Like, how it's like the 80s were back and then the 90s were back.
I just posted for us on Instagram about that. Like 80s clothing now. I mean, 2000s becoming vintage now.
Yeah. That's
right.
Oh gosh, I'm old.
Isn't that crazy? But 80 cents to $133 in a binder. And these binders are like pretty like bright.
Yeah.
Like, so keep an eye out for Lisa Frank. Thanks so much, Mike Coastal Bend Picker. All right. Next we got Luke, IG handle CT Flips _ constantly listens to our show. Appreciates our show. Thank you for the support. A friend contacted him if he wanted a cool 1950 Hubley Old Pal. So if you're like, what is this Hubley Old Pal? Okay. So it's a Hubley. If you look it up on Google, just Google Hubley, Hubley, you're going to find all these horses. And I never knew about it, right? But man, even like the little miniature horses like go for like $100, $200. They're just toys. Well, this thing is like a ride on, when you're a kid and ride on these like wooden horses kind of deal. And so I asked him, I'm like, okay, so so basically, let me read it. They found it in their attic and they sold it to him for $10. So I'm like, okay, so is your friend cool about the fact that like you bought it for $10? And like, no, it's somebody that I found on Facebook Marketplace and I bought stuff from before, developed a relationship. And now whenever they're cleaning out their attic, they contact me.
Nice.
And, again, I congratulate Luke because that is one of the best way to get scores is make connections from a previous purchase. And, they know you're the go-to person. And so you don't even have, the nice thing about that is you don't have to compete with anybody. Right. And generally they're okay with the price because they know you're going to pay them well. So, ended up looking up comps, hasn't sold yet, but comps are 250 plus. Right. So if you go to his page and you look at it, it's a pretty cool. It's just this huge, like right on to wooden horse from the 1950s.
Nice.
So
That's an awesome one.
Thanks so much, Luke.
I'm going to go ahead and skip this next one because I know for a fact I did this last time. So I think it's still on there.
What? Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I know. I'll come back to you. So are you going to share your hustle of the week?
Yeah, sure. My hustle of the week is, and it's not a big one. I mean, sometimes, the hustles of the week are for at least me personally. I can't have a huge one every week, but it was kind of cool because I picked up a Kansas City Chiefs hat, snapback hat at a thrift store when I was on a road trip. And I picked it up. I think they were doing like half off day of clothing. And so I think it was like a $2 hat. I paid $1 for it. And I think I got it wrong because I don't follow sports very much. I'm not a huge sports fan. I don't have the time for it. I played football in high school. So it's not that I hate sports. I just don't have time for it. But so I got mixed up. I was like, oh, this is going to be a good buy because they're changing their name, right? And I got them mixed up with the Redskins because I knew the Washington Redskins were changing their name. And so I was like, it's going to be worth money because it's like an old logo. Well, it was the Chiefs. And then they obviously have been doing really well. Made it to the Super Bowl last year, I think, and then almost made it this year. So during playoff time, this hat sold for, it was like over $30 for a $1 hat, and hats are easy to ship. So maybe I could have got more for it. I don't know. But when you've got teams going to the Super Bowl or doing well in the playoffs, it's a good time to raise prices. But it was kind of a hustle of the week because it was an accidental buy. I don't think I would have bought it if it wasn't for for $1, I probably would have bought it, but I wouldn't have been as like, ooh, I should consider buying this. If it wasn't an accident of thinking, oh yeah, this might be like worth money because it's like an old logo, they're changing their name.
Yeah.
And it was the wrong team that I was thinking of. And it still worked out in my favor. I didn't know the Chiefs were a good team, but I guess they are. There you go. I mean, I'm a 49er fan.
They've been a good team, but
I watch one football game every couple of years. And it's like if the 49ers make it to the Super Bowl or really far in the playoffs, that's about it.
Yeah, I'm that way too. So yeah. I get that. All right, we'll get to our other listener hustle of the week in a moment, but I'll share mine too. And so mine is not a sold yet, but I wanted to share this because, again, the power of networking, the power of handing out your business card. And so I've been sourcing like crazy lately, like crazy. I mean, Mike can attest to, I literally have multiple piles of clothing everywhere at my place. And part of it is because my helper also got sick and she's been behind, but it's just, I have a lot, which has been great. And one of the connections I ended up getting, is somebody, who I had contacted and deal didn't work out. But I ever said, hey, if you ever change your mind, let me know. Sometimes, you leave your business card or, you do a message through a local ad. You may not hear from that person for like 2 years or 3 years. This time it was in 2 days. Not even 2 days. It was like within a day. And so it was for some Hawaiian shirts. And I think I've shared another Hawaiian shirt haul. I've had a lot of hauls. And they had contacted me and they're like, you know what? Why don't you come on by and let's see, we have some other stuff and let's see what we can do. So I show up and me, I'm a big fan of Rain Spooner shirts, especially because I think they're harder to find and they're also very profitable. And so, I went to their place and I was only going to pick up like, I think it was like 5 shirts or something. And we started talking and they take me in their place and there is Rain Spooner everywhere, like everywhere, from like ads to backpacks to wallets to who knows.
They were Rain Spooner connoisseurs.
I mean, no, they were. And I'm like, wow, like I'm so glad I left my info behind. And then we started talking and I said, hey, so do you have other items you're wanting to sell? And so I made a deal for some backpacks, and then they're like, hey, we got more. And then they went and they had closets full. Right. And so I'm like, wow. And so I ended up having a huge buyout. Now, though, I'm still waiting to list some of those. I'm doing a lot of the research, but I got it at a good price. On top of that, again, you could be about business, but it's always pays to be friendly. So I literally hung out with these guys for like probably 45 minutes, and they knew I was a reseller, and they shared with me about what kind of Hawaiian shirts to look out for, things I had never heard of. Right? What are some of the spots to go to in Southern California where you can find some good Hawaiian shirts?
So that goes back to our idea of reputation, right? Like you built a reputation with them of being a good guy that they're willing to talk to.
Yeah, it was crazy because you're right. Because what they did is I said, do you have any more? And like, you're a good guy. Let's just add this to the pile. They didn't even charge me more for the extra, right? Because I already had made the deal. So like, let's just throw it in. And again, it wasn't anything of me. It was just, I was just high and I was interested. And so I learned a wealth of knowledge. I learned about what kinds of tags. I learned about what are some unique shirts that you really can't find that are discontinued, where to buy. I even learned about places in Hawaii to go to whenever I go to Hawaii and to source. I was like, my goodness, like literally the money I pay, the profit I'm going to make isn't even close to the amount of knowledge that I'm going to gain, that I did gain from these individuals. And so, still, I'm still probably going to work on some other stuff that I'm going to pick up here in the future. But again, networking is so key. So if you haven't had a business card, get a business card. Spend that $50. It's totally worth it to you. Always be willing to leave your phone number and your name. You never know what deal. And I'm also working on another deal on another huge haul. I've got some of it already purchased, and it's more. And again, my goal, if you've been listening to our update episodes, has been to never to go to a thrift store except maybe once a week. And it's coming through so far. So, all right, let's share our other listener hustle of the week, because Orlando did a complete fail. I thought, doesn't Google Docs like keep everything like when you type it? I swore I typed this up. So anyways, all right. So I'll give it over to Mike. So I'll give him the Instagram post. So here you go. Do you think you can work with that, or do you want me to do it?
I could try to. All right. So, well, I mean, I see what it's sold for.
No, but this is the person, and here's the story.
Oh, gotcha. All right. So at Good Girl Vintage USA,
I forgot to ask for their name. I'm sorry.
Picked up a 3-inch mouse, and it is a vintage Steiff Faux Schwarz Peeps pink bridesmaid mouse dress necklace red eye. Okay, so it's like a little mouse. It's like a little.
It literally is a little mouse.
Yeah, it's like a little like a knick-knack mouse thing. And bought it at an auction in a bag of a Steiff plush for $65. So the average cost was $10 a piece. This mouse was about $10. Did some research on eBay and realized that the mouse was special. Put it up for auction and let the market decide the value. Sometimes that's a good thing to do. So sold it for $331 plus about $9 shipping. Geez, from $10, even if that's your only sell from that $65 bag, that's a killer deal.
And Steiff sells well. I mean, I've only picked up about 2 pieces of Steiff, and they've sold well. So nice. Thanks so much, Good Girl Vintage USA. I am so sorry I did not ask for your name, but go check out her page. She has some awesome sales. Again, Good Girl Vintage USA on Instagram. Yeah. All right. Before we move on to what do you do after? Like, how do you keep your reputation when you failed? Let's talk about that. But before we do, what do you do if you have hair on your head and you like to keep a nice clean look? Do you know, Mike?
And when you specifically say hair on your head, you mean like just stubble. And maybe you are like me and you for a long time just use like a regular electric razor, like a hair cutting one, just because you got it close. Or maybe you're holding on to hair you shouldn't be holding on to. Or maybe you're still going old school and using a razor and you're cutting yourself. Oh, I remember that watching. I never wanted to shave my head with a razor because I used to watch my dad shave every day.
Yeah, just the worst.
Always had nicks on his head, and head cuts bleed like crazy. You know if you've had to do it, but we don't do that because we use Skull Shaver, and Skull Shaver is an incredible product. I've told it to a lot of people. I've showed a lot of people. I mean, they see my head and they're like, "Man, your dome looks so good." And I'm like, "It's Skull Shaver, man. It's Skull Shaver." I had one person at my work who bought it for her boyfriend. And he loves it, right? And because, if you're used to using a regular razor, or you've kind of just, maybe you let it go and you just kind of keep it buzzed down short, or you're letting that, like I said, that kind of the fringe go, don't. Just go clean dome. I went to church the other day and my pastor saw me and I just used the Skull Shaver maybe like an hour before going in. And he was even like, "Oh my goodness, your head looks so good. You just cut it." And I always keep my head cut short. So it's like, it's that good. So get yourself a Skull Shaver, use promo code PHP. That is our new promo code for Skull Shaver, and you'll get a great discount. And it lets them know that we sent you. So it helps us out.
All right. So what do you do after? Like, you want to keep that 100% or that great rep. Maybe it's a 99.8 on Amazon or eBay. One of the things I see a lot of people not do is they don't answer right away. When you have somebody that's angry, now there are the times when they're super angry and maybe it's good to wait an hour or two and let them cool down, but you don't know if that's going to happen, right? They could be heated the entire time. And so you remember, how upset are you when there's an injustice, right? And you want it resolved right away. Well, think about it. That's the same way with the buyer, right? The buyer has bought something. They were looking forward to something. There's something wrong with it. And right away they're thinking, I can't wait to give that negative feedback, right? And I don't know if eBay there needs to be like a 3-day waiting period. I don't know if somebody in the comments can let me know, is that still around? There used to be like, you could not leave a negative feedback until 3 days. Don't know if that's changed. But answer right away, because when you answer right away, it lets the customer know that you care about who they are, you care about what they bought, and you're looking to make things right. So have you had any times where like you're like, oh man, I better get this person right away?
Yeah, I mean, so I kind of look at it like this: like when you get an email or you get something, a text message, sometimes if it's a personal thing, it's a good idea to wait to respond.
Agreed.
Because waiting to respond can allow you to cool down. But we've talked a lot about, you're running this as a business. You've got to be professional, and none of it's personal. If they're upset, even if they're like, you sell fraud stuff, you're trying to rip me off, it's not personal. They don't know you. They don't know your life. They're not attacking you as an individual. They're upset. Maybe they're the scammer. Who knows, right? So maybe they're having a bad day. So you don't take it personally. But unlike a personal situation, waiting is not the best idea, because it's just going to cause them to fume on it. But maybe you need some more time to resolve the situation. Maybe you're like, I don't know, I need to look into it. Like, why is it being delayed? Maybe. So if you need more time, I mean, at least respond and say, hey, thank you for letting me know. Let me look into this or something like that, because letting them know right away that you're on it is going to definitely help. So, or like you said, if you offer returns, just right away say, I'm sorry you're unhappy with your purchase. Go ahead and send it back for a refund. And when you do respond, be polite, right? Because you got to remember, this is like a trail. So if they're coming at you very aggressive, if they're very angry, and you're constantly responding back, not in a condescending professional way, because there's a way of doing that, but doing it with some genuine, even if you don't feel it, even just think though, eBay may review this if this goes to like a dispute. I want to be on the side. I want to have the reputation of, I'm so sorry, you're not happy with it, or I'm sorry that happened during shipping, and then offer the refund or partial refund or whatever it is you're going to do to resolve the situation. Or even just letting them know, like, unfortunately, I've had to do this in the past. Unfortunately, due to my policies, you're going to have to pay to return it. But by responding right away, then they respond angry again. And then when it goes to an eBay dispute, you've got all of the records of, hey, I responded as soon as they sent it. I was kind. I was polite. I've offered them solutions. So you definitely want to respond right away.
Oh, agreed. Now, along with that, you want to respond with options, right? Like you said, right away, putting that, hey, if you're welcome to return it, that's an option.
Or partial refund sometimes. Like that could be the two options. I've done that before. Say, you can return this. Maybe something happened and it was like my fault. I've said, I tested this and it works, but then they respond like we talked about VCRs in the beginning. And that's what they say is like, yeah, everything works except for if you rewind a video for more than 10 seconds, it starts freaking out. Who knows? Like maybe I just tested it. Yep. Oh, okay. Rewinds, it fast forwards. So then you can, okay, maybe this is my fault. So you can say, I'm sorry this happened. You can send it back for a full refund, or if you'd like, I can take $20 off the price. I can send you $20 back and you can keep the item. Please let me know how you'd like to proceed. Yeah. And sometimes they don't even respond to that. Right. And you're good to go. But by offering options, it's very, very helpful. And again, it shows that you're willing to work with them. It gives them a sense of, okay, I can calm down. They're going to be less likely to give you negative feedback. And if they do give you that negative feedback, you've got that paper trail.
Yeah. And some other options you can give too is, you are welcome. If you have another item, you can offer them another item. Hey, I have something similar. If you don't have something similar, there's always you're welcome to anything inside my store for 20% off right now. Just let me know. And, I can cancel the transaction. I mean, that's more on down the road. If there's, you're out of stock of an item and you want to keep your feedback, you don't want that negative defect on there. So you let them know, hey, I'm sorry, this item is no longer available. You're welcome to anything in my store for 20% off, or I can cancel the transaction. And you're like, and I've said this many times, I share this many times, but if you're new to this, you might be like, Orlando, like, aren't they just going to say, just cancel it? Yes. And you want them to, because then you can go and say buyer asked to cancel the order and you're good to go, right? It doesn't give you a negative defect. And so you want to give the option. And another option that eBay has introduced to us in the last year is coupons. So I already have a coupon ready to go. If I'm out of stock or there's an issue, it's a 20% off anything in my store. And I just say, hey, I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. Here's a 20% off coupon for any other future purchases. Do they ever take me up on that? No, but it gives them the option. It's you want to do everything you can to divert that individual from going to the negative feedback route.
Yeah. And that kind of leads into the last point of like going above and beyond. And I think giving options is one of those ways you go above and beyond. Is you're saying, hey, you can send it for a full refund. And if you'd like, here's a 10% off coupon. This even counts for sometimes, like you mentioned in the beginning, we hate when this happens. Doesn't happen very often. Hopefully it never happens to you. But let's say you sell something and then you go to get it. Let's say you go to get it off the shelf. And as you're taking it off the shelf, it slips and falls and breaks.
That's the worst.
Right. Or you realize I don't have it or I can't find it. One time I lost a watch, right? Still to this day, I don't know where it is. So when those things happen, when you go above and beyond and say, hey, I'm sorry this happened. We're going to have to cancel the order. I can't ship it to you. It broke or it's unsafe. One time I had a pair of like those like duck feet things you use for swimming in the water. Like, what are they called? Flippers. And they sell really well for me, but I had one pair that was great condition. It sat for a while. And then as I went to sell it, I noticed the back was like starting to rip. And I'm like, this isn't safe. Like if they go out in the water with this, it's going to break. I don't want that on me. So then I let them know like, hey, this happened. I don't feel safe sending this. I mean, I could send it to you broken if you want, or we can cancel the order. You can take 10% off, like, offering those options. And by doing that, by going above and beyond, even if they're frustrated, it's like, okay, they've got options they can go for, or they're like, you know what? Sure, thanks. I will take a discount. Or yeah, you can still send it to me, even though it has that new scratch from, you scraping it on the shelf as you were pulling it off. And I'll gladly take that $15 discount. Right. Yeah. So by going above and beyond, letting them know, hey, this is in worse condition than I originally posted. Would you still like it? If so, I'll give you a discount. If not, I'll go ahead and cancel the order.
So I'll give you guys a real case scenario that just happened recently. And again, I'm not trying to, say Orlando, he's so good at what he does. I just, this is what I mean by going the extra mile. So the other day I had an item that sold, and it was like what do you call those Sirius satellite radios? And I had two packages. Now I thought I had already sold the one package. So what I mean is I thought I had, so one was like a remote and a battery or something like that. And the other one was the SiriusXM radio itself. The person had bought the radio. The packages looked the same. I sent them the green package that had the remote and battery and not the radio.
Yeah, this is definitely a story where someone's like, man, Orlando, you're so good at this.
I know. I don't even know how that happened. Right. So I'm seriously, I'm like, I wasn't in a rush either. Right. One of the things we could talk about, one of the ways to keep your good feedback is don't be rushed in everything. Like make sure you take the time to do it right. I did everything right. I guess I didn't look at the package. So I get this message and they said, I just received my item. Why did you send me the wrong item? And that's how they said it, because they had the extra, question mark. Sorry for the volume. Sorry for your eardrums. I ordered the new, Rode XT, blah, blah, blah. You sent the Rode XT, blah, blah, blah. So I sent the wrong one. I opened my package in disbelief. Now I have to spend money on postage, sending this item back to you. And I go on my trip with on my radio. This is unbelievable. And I'm like, and the unfortunate thing is I opened this in the middle of like my teaching, like my students were like doing something. And I'm like, oh, great. Like, and I couldn't resolve it right away, but I did as soon as I had a break. So I replied, I said, I am so sorry. My apologies. Not sure what happened. I fully refunded you the amount, including the shipping. So I'm already out that money. Okay. That money's gone. It was like $50 in total. Okay. You're welcome to keep it. I can look back in my inventory and see if I can locate it and send it express. Again, my apologies. So I already gave him the 40, and then I was probably going to drop another $30 to $40 to make this right out of my own pocket. Not saying you have to do this, but again, is $80 worth me keeping my positive feedback? To me, it is. Right? Because, I don't know how that's going to affect the kind of sales. I get high dollar sales all the time. I get higher sales on items and other individuals that list the same item. And I think reputation plays a part. So I eventually got home and, he replied, "Thanks for your thoughtful reply. You already refunded my money. If you can locate in your inventory the right item and send it express when I would receive it." So they're already toned down, right? They're not angry. They're not upset. When you mean express, do you mean next day delivery? 2 days. I leave on my trip Wednesday. So this was a Monday. So I doubt I would receive it by then. Since you've refunded my money already, what would I owe you now once I receive the right item if you send it? So they wanted to make things right now, right? They're still willing to pay me after the fact. Thanks for trying to make things right. But here's the thing. The way the story ended is interesting because I got home. And I located the item. I sent them a picture of like the padded express envelope and the item, like, "Hey, here's the right item. I'm about to drop this off." And so I said, "I located the item and I'm ready to pack it." Once I canceled the eBay transaction, which was weird, it didn't show me your address anymore. "Please let me know your address and I will drop it off today and send you tracking after I print the label," which I was going to go via pirate ship. So then they replied, "Thanks for replying, but I no longer need the item. I found another one in storage. I thought I had lost. Thank you."
Yeah,
so
there you go.
So did the guy make out with $40? Yeah. Did I have to send it express? No. Right. So it saved me that extra cost. But I went the extra mile in customer service. And I'm grateful because that probably could have been a negative feedback. I don't know if eBay would have removed that one.
No.
Right? That's an INAD. That was completely my fault.
No.
Completely my fault. But still was able to make things right. And I was able to maintain that 100% feedback. And I'm hoping I can hold it for a long time.
That's right.
So I hope this episode was very helpful to you, or maybe just, gave you some good reminders, or maybe you got some bolos from those awesome hustles of the week from our different listeners. Thank you for submitting those and appreciate all of you. As always, want to help us out, you can always go to patreon.com/PureHustle Podcast. And as always, make sure to be real,
be relevant,
and be reselling. Late.
Peace.